Hey guys, it's Sam and this is my April wrap-up. April started out as a slow reading month for me. I was really nervous I was going to fall into a reading slump, but thankfully there were readathons at the end of the month that kept me going. The first book that I read this month was The Glittering Court by Rochelle Mead. I requested an arc of this from Penguin to review, and this book is now released. This is about our main character who is a countess as being set up in an arranged marriage that she doesn't want, so she escapes to the new world and becomes a part of the Glittering Court. The Glittering Court is a kind of boarding school that takes lower class, lower society ladies and turns them into high class ladies and marries them off. So she discovers in this place a way to get away from her old life, and she takes it and everything kind of takes off from there. So I've done a full review on this book, which I will link on the screen, but I ended up not enjoying it as much as I hoped that I would. I found the world building to be very lackluster. This is set up as a fantasy series, and I don't think that is a very good title for this. I think this reads more like an historical fiction because a lot of elements that were changed to be more fantasy were just names changed, because you could tell that this is supposed to be the United States and this is supposed to be England and these are supposed to be Native Americans and stuff like that. So I think this would have been better advertised as a historical fiction or as alternate history. I really enjoyed the characters in this though, and the characters were what really motivated me to keep reading. And as far as the whole companion series thing, there were a lot of plot holes. So a lot of people I think are going to be disappointed because a lot of things are not answered in this book. You really have to read the whole series, which obviously isn't out yet, to get a lot of just main plot points filled in, and I found that really frustrating. I like the idea of a companion series, but I'm not sure it really works in this case because it's going to be better read at the end as a whole series than when each book comes out, because a lot of things with the ending were completely just left out because we don't know them, because it wasn't involving necessarily our main character. So I found that pretty frustrating. So overall, I didn't hate this book necessarily, but I didn't love it, so I gave it about 2 to 2.5 stars. The next book that I picked up really made up for The Glittering Court, and that is The Lies of Locke Lamora by Scott Lynch. This is the first book in an ongoing adult fantasy series, and it follows a band of thieves. It really follows the main character of Locke Lamora, and he is a thief, but these thieves are more what they kind of call high-class thieves. So instead of just breaking into buildings and stealing things, they go on long cons, and they are kind of like actors, and they consider themselves gentlemen, which is why they call themselves the Gentlemen Bastards, which is the best kind of gang name that I've ever heard, and I just really adored everything about this story. I've wanted to read this book for a while now because I knew I was going to love it. I really loved the way this book was written in particular. I found it extremely clever. So it follows a storyline in the present with all of these people and all of these thieves, but also follows their backstories, particularly Locke's, and their upbringing, although we do get the other thieves as well mixed in with that, and kind of how they were turned into these thieves and how they were kind of trained and how their friendships were formed and everything. So I loved that about it. So I don't even know which story I preferred. I loved the old story and I loved the new story, and I also loved how they were woven together because there's hints to things within the old, and it's just wonderful and so masterfully done. If you enjoyed Six of Crows and you really haven't read any adult fantasy, this is like Six of Crows on crack. Like, it is just a whole nother level and so complex and just twists and turns that I wasn't expecting, and really wonderful character relationships and really wonderful friendships. Jean and Locke are one of my favorite new friendships. I just love them so much, and I just enjoyed all of the witty banter and all of just how smart in general this whole book was. I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars, and I cannot wait to read more of the series, although I'm kind of spacing it out because I know that the series isn't finished and I don't want to catch up and then be left waiting forever. So I finished The Lies of Locke Lamora during Author-a-thon. Author-a-thon was a readathon that myself and Joanna hosted. I will link Joanna's channel down below and information about Author-a-thon because we're going to have more in the future, but I kind of failed on my TBR completely with Author-a-thon because I was hosting sprints a lot, and I was mostly reading The Lies of Locke Lamora because I didn't get it finished before Author-a-thon, which, oops, sorry. So these next few books are books I picked up during Author-a-thon. I decided to pick up Everbound by Brody Ashton. This is the second book in the Everneath trilogy, and I read the first book a couple months ago, and I wasn't exactly thrilled about it, but I wanted to keep reading the series. The series is advertised as being a Hades and Persephone retelling, and it's really not. There are very small elements of that, but it's more an Orpheus and Eurydice retelling with the first book, and then this book is not really Hades and Persephone at all. I don't really know what it's trying to be, but basically it weaves in a lot of Greek mythology elements into it, but it's not the Hades and Persephone elements that I particularly wanted. So I wanted to pick up this book because these are really fast reads. I don't think the writing is particularly strong. I don't think the characters are particularly strong, but they read super quickly. So I needed that after reading Eliza Locke Lamora, which I loved, but took me a long time to read. So this one I finished in a day. I liked it more than the first book, but from where the series is going, I'm not sure I'm going to like the series overall. They're just kind of fluffy, light reads for me, and I think they could be so much more, and they could just be so great with some of the elements that they do weave in, but it just doesn't quite get there. So I gave this one 2 out of 5 stars. And the next book that I picked up was Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe by Benjamin Elias Sands. I've been meaning to read this book forever, and I knew it was a book, again, that I was going to love, but with books that I know I'm going to love, I almost have to have this perfect moment for them. Like, I have to wait for the absolute perfect timing for it. And I don't even know why I'm that way, because any time is going to be a good time for a book that you know you're going to love, but I just do this. So I finally decided that I had to pick this one up. This is a YA contemporary that follows Aristotle and Dante, who are 2 Mexican-American boys growing up in the 80s, and they meet, they become friends, and they fall in love, and I can't even fully talk about this book because it surprised me so much. Even though I knew I was going to love it, I was particularly surprised by the writing style. I wasn't sure what I was expecting going into the writing. I'm not typically a huge fan of contemporaries. I just don't find their writing to be particularly strong. This book has one of the most unique writing styles I've found in contemporary books, because it's straightforward, almost stream of consciousness, but it also has these beautiful lines woven in. And you feel the passage of time because this takes place kind of over a couple of years. So you don't obviously follow every single point in their lives, and it doesn't really drone on about unnecessary things. It doesn't draw anything out unnecessarily. It follows these key points in their lives and their friendship and their relationship and how their love grows. And I was completely blown away by it. I was also blown away with the fact that this doesn't just follow the love story, it also follows the relationships in general, just between characters, especially between the boys and their parents. Both families are particularly loving families, and they're flawed, but they're very strongly bonded. And it really just blew me away how beautiful their relationships were with their families, because usually when you have a book that's following queer characters, you have families who are very against them and are a huge point of contention and angst with them because of their sexuality. But with this book, there were obviously elements of frustration with families because that's just families, but it also wasn't because of their sexuality. And I really appreciated that. You had a really strong family unit in both cases with both boys. And I absolutely adored that. And I fell in love with all the characters, and I fell in love with the writing, and I fell in love with the story. And I cannot believe that I put it off for so long. I can't believe it. I will be doing a full review on this book, but I gave Aristotle and Dante 5 out of 5 stars. And the last book that I read in April was The Dream Thieves by Maggie Stiefvater. As many of you probably already know, because the Raven cycle has taken over everything since The Raven King just came out, this is the second book in the Raven cycle. This is my first time reading this series, and I was trying to catch up for The Raven King, but I failed completely. And these are just books that I cannot read back to back. They are wonderful and beautiful, but they give me kind of anxiety because they are a little bit creepy, and I can't read them back to back completely. But for those of you that don't know, this is following a group of friends who are hunting a dead Welsh king, and it's full of magic and mystery and eeriness and atmosphere, and it follows their really close relationships with each other, and it's wonderful and beautiful. And I loved this book way more than the first one. I really liked the first one. I gave it 4 stars, but this one I gave 5 stars. I loved how Maggie Stiefvater expanded on the world. I like how the world continued to be creepy and weird and atmospheric, and how things are just not what they seem, but they also are, and that's like a magical quality about them. And just the relationships and the friendships in this series are what make it for me, because the relationships are so strong. And it's the relationship between individual characters in the group as well as the group itself, and the dynamics and how each friendship is different among all these people, and it's beautiful. And also the writing is absolutely stunning, and I just have a lot of feelings. I am going to be doing a full review on this, but I'm probably going to post it after I've read the rest of the books in the series, because I am terrified of spoilers. I have not been on Tumblr at all for fear of Raven Cycle spoilers. I already have little spoilers throughout the series that I've just seen and hadn't realized, so I need to just be as spoiler-free as possible. But I absolutely adore this one. It's my favorite one of the 2 so far. I think it's a lot of people's favorite book in the whole series. I loved it. 5 out of 5 stars. Alright guys, that is it for my April wrap-up. Comment down below and let me know your favorite book that you read this month. So thank you all for watching, and I'll see all of you guys soon. Bye!